Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the last part of today's session. So, before the break, we were talking about different types of malwares. We understood what's a computer virus, what's a computer worm, what's a Trojan. Now, let us understand what is a ransomware. You might have come across this word in current affairs, in newspapers. It is frequently in news. Today, if you look at all the cyber attacks that are happening, majority of the cyber crimes are done by using ransomwares. In the last 10 years especially, the proportion of ransomware attacks have increased exponentially. Currently, this represents one of the biggest threats with regard to cyber crimes. So what exactly is a ransomware? Ransomware is also a malware that is designed by the attacker to lock your system. The malware is designed in such a way that once it enters your system gets encrypted. The data on your system is completely encrypted with high level encryption, and it locks out your system, meaning you cannot access your computer. You cannot access the data on it because it is completely encrypted. The only thing you will see on the screen is a message from the attacker. The attacker will let you know that your system has been taken over, the data is encrypted. If you want access back, if you want to control your system again and get the data back, you need the de-encryption key. You need the key to de-encrypt. And the attacker will mention that if you want the key, pay the ransom that we are demanding. Basically, they will hold you hostage. Only if you pay that ransom amount through cryptocurrencies. They will mention the amount as well in bitcoins or in other cryptocurrencies. They will give you the details. They'll give you the address where exactly you have to send the bitcoin, the cryptocurrency. Only if you make this payment, only then they will give you the key to de-encrypt your system. If you try to do anything else, the malware is such that it will erase all the data. Either it will permanently lock your system or the data will get erased. So such an attack where your system is in a way hijacked and held by the attacker, the data is all encrypted, your system is locked out, and you're being threatened. The only way you can get control back and access the system and the data is by paying that money, paying that ransom, which is usually in bitcoins and other cryptocurrencies. Cyber criminals, they use cryptocurrencies for payments to avoid any detection by the authorities because cryptocurrencies provide anonymity. It conceals their identity, their location, right? You can't trace back these transactions. That's the very nature of cryptocurrencies. So such an attack where the attacker is locking your system and expecting a ransom in return to unlock your system, this is a ransomware attack. Is that clear? This is how a ransomware attack works. And there is no guarantee that they will provide you the key even after you pay the ransom. They might extract a double ransom. Even after paying, they may not give you the key and they'll ask you to pay money again. So they will extract money like this from their victims. And this has become a lucrative business for cyber criminals. See, for individuals, this may not matter much. Now, let's say my computer is attacked with ransomware. I don't have much of precious data. I have just few documents, few PPTs, etc. Right? Even if I lose the data, it's okay for me. Why will I pay money to an attacker? Instead, I'll throw that laptop itself. But imagine if this happens with big institutions, companies, corporations, government institutions. They cannot afford to lose the data. Right? Imagine a bank being held at ransom or a government organization which is holding precious data on these systems and the systems are locked out. They can't lose the data. They can't lose those systems. They have to get the access back. So they will end up paying the ransom, which is very huge. They will always ask in millions of dollars, right? That worth of cryptocurrencies has to be paid in ransom to get the key and to de-encrypt the system. So many government organizations and even private companies have been targeted with ransomware attacks. For example, in 2017-18, there was a popular ransomware called WannaCry. This affected several computers around the world, and many organizations, they lost millions of dollars to the attackers. Another popular ransomware is Petya and NotPetya. These ransomwares were allegedly designed by Russian cyber groups waging a cyber war against Ukraine. Even before Russia invaded Ukraine, Russia-Ukraine have been involved in a conflict since 2014. Right? Russia had annexed Crimean Peninsula. It was sponsoring a separatist war in Ukraine. During this period, it is believed that Russian cyber groups, which are very powerful with their cyber armies, apparently they launched ransomware attacks against Ukrainian government services, like Ukrainian banks, ATMs, Ukraine's electricity supply, water supply, bus services. These important government entities were targeted, their systems were locked out, and unless and until they pay a ransom, they'll not give the access back. So either the services are disrupted, government services, or they have to pay the ransom to the attackers. So Petya, NotPetya was also a type of ransomware attack. So like this, there are many ransomware attacks. Recently, we had Akira ransomware. The Akira ransomware, which infected many computers around the world. Many big corporations and companies have been targeted. In US, a very big food giant, which runs restaurants and food processing companies, it was targeted and its critical systems were locked out. They paid millions of dollars in ransom to get control back. Similarly, a oil supplying company in the US that controls oil pipelines, their systems were locked out, disrupting oil supplies. So they were blackmailed to pay ransom to get the control back. Then the healthcare system in UK, the NHS, which is the backbone of UK's healthcare system, these critical systems were locked out, thereby disrupting healthcare services in hospitals. Doctors could not treat the patients, they could not access patient records. The healthcare system almost collapsed, and finally ransom was paid to get the control back. Even India's AIIMS, the elite medical institution in Delhi, was recently brought under a ransomware attack. It disrupted patient services. AIIMS systems were locked out for a day, and doctors could not access key patient records and details, and many patients had to suffer, and healthcare delivery was affected. Right? So there are many such incidents. You will read about this in newspapers, in current affairs. Please make a note of it. UPSC can ask you what is a ransomware attack. Right? You have to explain how it works, give some examples, and point out that this is the most rising threat with regard to cyber crimes and cyber attacks, because this allows the attackers to make millions of dollars quite easily. Understood? Now, what are the different types of cyber threats? These malwares that we discussed, virus, worms, etc., they can be used for different reasons and different purposes to achieve different goals. It can be used for cyber espionage, to spy on another country, to spy on someone, in order to steal confidential information. Right? For example, Operation Shady Rat and Operation GhostNet. These were allegedly Chinese cyber operations that we witnessed between 2008 to 2012. During that period, several cyber groups linked with Chinese intelligence and state agencies, they had launched attacks against many embassies, government organizations, and their main purpose was to spy on Tibetan activities. because Tibetan activities, that is Tibetan activists who are fighting for Tibet's independence and liberation, right? They work with some other countries, they meet government leaders, they ask for help to pressurize China. So China treats them as anti-nationals. So to monitor the activities of these Tibetan activists who are largely based out of India, right? Because there's a Tibetan parallel government in India. So these targets were identified, and many embassies and consulates of several countries were targeted. Indian embassies and consulates, American embassies and consulates, which are in touch with Tibetan activists, they were targeted in order to steal sensitive information. Several government agencies and departments were targeted to steal military information and strategic information. Even universities, research institutions, and private companies were targeted in these operations to steal research material, to steal intellectual property. So this was a long-lasting operation, which is named as Operation Shady Rat and GhostNet. It's believed that these were Chinese espionage operations to collect classified information from targeted countries. Cyber tools, cyber weapons can be used for cyber warfare, where one country deploys offensive weapons to target another country, like Petya, how Russia used Petya ransomware to target Ukraine. Another example is Stuxnet. Stuxnet was a deadly computer worm which was allegedly developed by US and Israeli cybersecurity agencies to target Iran's nuclear program. Through the Stuxnet worm, US and Israel, they penetrated the worm into Iran's nuclear centrifuge plants, which is involved in enriching nuclear material, right? To produce weapons grade uranium through which nuclear weapons can be produced, uranium has to be enriched. So these enrichment facilities, the centrifuges, and the computers that control them, they were targeted with Stuxnet. And what Stuxnet did was, once it infected the targeted computers, it would give remote access to the attacker. The attackers would assume remote control and they would manipulate the functioning of the centrifuge. They would increase the rotation, slow down the rotation, manipulate it in such a way that the centrifuge would destroy itself. It would get destructed. So like this, Iran's nuclear centrifuges were physically destroyed through a cyber attack. The centrifuges, of course, are controlled by computers. The worm was infiltrated. It was placed into these computer systems that control the centrifuges of Iran. And according to several reports, a few nuclear centrifuges of Iran were destroyed by causing a malfunction in their operation. And this attack is believed to have been carried out by US and Israeli intelligence agencies. It's one of the most sophisticated worms that has ever been developed. So this is an example of cyber war, cyber warfare. India also has been a victim. There are reports that power plants, power grids, and even a few seaports have been targeted by Chinese state cyber agencies when the Ladakh crisis was going on. When the Ladakh border clashes had erupted, several power grids and power plants in India were targeted with cyber attacks. For example, the whole city of Mumbai, it was taken out of the power grid. Power supply was cut off. There was a blackout in Mumbai due to the collapse of the power grid. This allegedly was because of a cyber attack by Chinese cyber agencies. Few power plants in Andhra Pradesh and other states were targeted. Few seaports were targeted. And it's believed that these were cyber operations of China, which means it was an attempt at cyber war. Cyber terrorism is also a reality. Terrorist groups have tried to develop cyber capabilities, especially Al-Qaeda and even Islamic State. They have made attempts to carry out cyber attacks and carry out cyber terrorism. One attempt was made by an ISIS module to get control of a computer system that was controlling a dam in the US. So by hacking into the system, they were trying to get remote access through which they could manipulate the functioning of the dam, which could lead to the collapse, the disintegration of the dam that leads to floods and disasters. But fortunately, the attack was prevented. US agencies disrupted the attack. Then Al Qaeda had made one attempt to target the oil infrastructure, oil pipelines in the US. Even this attack failed, but it shows that even terror groups are trying to build cyber capabilities. Then, of course, you have your regular cyber criminals who are looking to steal data, steal money, commit frauds, extract ransom, right? They also use malwares to commit all these cyber crimes. Today, because of generative AI, the concerns have increased. Because generative AI tools can produce deep fakes, audio, video, images, which look very authentic, which sound very authentic. I'll tell you one example. Of late, people are getting calls in India and around the world. On the other side of the call, it sounds that as if it's a person you know. Let's say I get a call, and on the other end of the phone, it appears as if my father is talking to me. The voice is exactly the same, exactly how my father would speak. So obviously, I'll recognize my father's voice, right? So I feel that this is a genuine call that my father has placed to me. Now the other person there, right? He will say that I'm in distress. I've been kidnapped, and only if you pay the money, the kidnappers will release me. Or I met with an accident. Please transfer money immediately. So the moment I listen to my father's voice, which sounds exactly like my father, I will panic as well and I will transfer the money. But then you will realize that this was a fake call. It was some other person on the other end. They have taken my father's voice sample and through generative AI generated a deep fake, a conversation which sounds exactly like my father's voice. That is how they tricked me. That is how I was made to believe it was actually my father, and I fell for it and I would have transferred the money. So such cyber crimes are increasing. There are cases where kidnappings are happening, virtual kidnapping. Please read about it. What they do is they target children. They manipulate children. Children play online games, they are on social media, right? That's why you have to be very careful when children are using the internet. You should make them educated, you should make them aware of these risks. There have been a couple of incidents already recently, in one in US and one in another country, where minor children, right, they were manipulated by cyber attackers. They convinced the child to go and hide and tie themselves up. How do they do it? They do it by manipulating them through emotional manipulation or by gaining some leverage over them. Is that clear? So they basically blackmail them, they threaten them, they convince them that they have to do this on their own. So the child goes and locks herself up, ties up her hands as well, and then she has to take images, take pictures and a video, and send this to her parents. So the criminals convince this kid to do this. She is not really kidnapped. There is no real threat to her. This is a staged virtual kidnapping. They only focus on convincing the child to show the parents that as if the child has been kidnapped. So the child isolates themselves, they lock themselves up, they even tie themselves up as instructed by the criminals, take pictures and video and send it to their parents. Right now, the parents will panic. They'll think the child has been kidnapped because it all looks very authentic, right? So they will send a message saying this is the ransom, the money you have to pay to get your child back. The parents will transfer the money as well, and then they will realize the child was never kidnapped. The child had just been convinced by the criminals to stage a kidnapping, a virtual kidnapping. So imagine the different methods that criminals are using. So that is why cyber safety, cyber security becomes very, very crucial. So let's understand what measures has India taken to strengthen cybersecurity. Let's understand why is it important to protect our critical information infrastructure from these cyber attacks. So first I'll explain what is critical infrastructure and critical information infrastructure, and then we will proceed to talk about the laws that we have, the institutions, the policies that we have to deal with cyber threats and cyber crimes. Critical infrastructure, or CI, is essentially the backbone of a country. All the important public infrastructure falls under this definition. It could be important government facilities and infrastructure, military infrastructure, military bases, missile bases, etc. Then your airports, seaports, your rail infrastructure, your power infrastructure, power plants, power grids, even nuclear plants, dams, your banking system, your whole financial system, including the stock markets, then your communication infrastructure, the mobile internet infrastructure, right? This is what constitutes the critical infrastructure of a country. I'm talking about the physical infrastructure, the actual airport, the mobile towers, the switching equipment, right? The banking institutions, the stock exchanges, the dams, power plants, power grids. This is our critical infrastructure. This is the backbone of our country, of our economy, right? Now, these facilities, they're all run by computers. From airports to military bases to your banks and your stock markets, even your power plants, power grids, your dam operation, everything is controlled by computers which are connected to the network. This IT infrastructure which controls your critical infrastructure becomes critical information infrastructure. Understood? So your physical infrastructure can be threatened and even disrupted and destroyed by carrying out cyber attacks against the critical information infrastructure, against the computers and networks that control your physical infrastructure. For example, airport operations, ATC operations in an airport, right? It's all computerized. What if an attacker gains access to it, sends wrong navigation codes to the pilots, and he can ensure that planes will crash? What if attackers get control of computers operating a dam or a nuclear plant and make it to malfunction, causing a physical destruction of the dam or the power plant, resulting in a disaster, in a tragedy? What if attackers get hold of computers controlling the stock exchange and the banking system? They can crash your economy, right? So this is what we mean by critical information infrastructure. And these are all interconnected sectors. An attack on one sector will have a domino effect. It will bring down other sectors as well. For example, if power grids are taken down, if there is a blackout across the country, your communications will go down. Finance and banking transactions will be disrupted. Military communication might be disrupted. So imagine the consequences. It's not just the economic threat, there is a direct national security threat. This is how cyber terrorists and cyber warfare waged by enemy countries can bring down countries. They can physically destroy your infrastructure. They can cause trains to derail by sending wrong signaling, by hacking into the computers controlling the railway traffic. They can cause a train accident. Airport functioning can be completely disrupted. Port operations can be thrown out of gear. Power plants can be destroyed by manipulating the functioning of critical systems. Is that clear? So such attacks on the computer networks controlling your critical infrastructure is extremely devastating to a country. This can bring down a country to its knees. Is that clear? This is not just some movie story I'm discussing. This is real world. It can be done, and it has been done in many cases. So it's very crucial to protect not just the physical infrastructure through physical security, but we have to protect the information infrastructure, the computers controlling the critical infrastructure of the nation. So under the IT Act of 2000, we have defined critical information infrastructure. It is nothing but the computer resources, the computers and the networks, which are controlling our critical infrastructure crucial for our security, economy, public health, and safety. If they are attacked, it can incapacitate the country or destroy the physical infrastructure, causing a domino effect across industries, which can destroy our economy, which can threaten our national security. Right? So this is the era of cyber warfare. This is the world of virtual wars. Is that clear? So these are interconnected systems that are dependent on one another. So it's very crucial to protect those computer resources which are controlling the operations of our critical infrastructure facilities. So in India, we have defined what constitutes our critical information infrastructure under the IT Act. So this is the primary law we have in India to deal with cyber crimes, to deal with all kinds of cyber offenses and cyber crimes. This is the primary law in India. It was enacted in 2000 and it is modeled on the UN CITRAL, the UN Model Law on Electronic Commerce of 1996. As computers and internet was developing around the world and they were being adopted in every sector, the UN came out with a model law in 1996 to provide a guideline for other countries to create laws based on this, to regulate electronic commerce, information technology, and IT resources, so that the new threats associated with computers and internet can be dealt with. So based on the UN CITRAL model, India drafted the IT Act and it was enacted by the Parliament in 2000. It essentially deals with all forms of cyber crimes and regulates electronic commerce in the country. Electronic commerce is nothing but any electronic exchange of data and information. It could be a digital payment, it could be sending of an email, right? It could be just browsing on a particular website or controlling certain systems through the web, through connected systems. Any such electronic activity involving computers and the internet, this electronic transaction is controlled, regulated under this law. All IT systems, IT-based services, they fall under the regulation of the IT Act. Is that clear? Now, if you look at the provisions, one important provision is that under IT Act, even foreign nationals can be booked under Indian law. Now, why is this important? Remember, I told you, a cyber criminal or the attacker can be located in any country. So we may not know their identity, we may not know where the attack is coming from. So in order to investigate and eventually get hold of these criminals, it is important to allow the law to have a wide jurisdiction so that even unknown foreign citizens can be booked under the law. Let's say a Russian cyber criminal group has carried out a fraud in India. Initially, our investigating authorities are not able to figure out where the attack came from. The attackers are unknown. The location is unknown. But further investigations might reveal who was behind it. So until then, Indian authorities can book unknown Indian citizens and even foreign citizens involved in the attack. Once we trace the attack through cyber forensics and through investigation, right, we can name those foreign nationals and press charges against them. We can push those countries to hand over the cyber criminals based on this. So foreign citizens or attackers sitting in any part of the world, right, can be booked under the law for committing cyber crimes in India against Indians. Is that clear? That's a very important provision. It takes care of the lack of geographical boundaries and the anonymity provided by the internet. It has created a legal framework for regulating e-governance, electronic governance, because the government itself became one of the biggest adopters of internet and digital governance. Today, government schemes are implemented through computer platforms and internet-based platforms. Government subsidies are being paid to people through online transactions. Government schemes are being monitored through computer and online-based platforms. So to deliver e-governance, it was necessary to create a legal framework. So this is what gives recognition to e-governance and enables the digital delivery of government services. It gives legal validity for electronic documents and even digital signatures. See, today, you can carry electronic documents, be it your Aadhaar card, your PAN card, your IT returns, and your Form 16. All these documents, which are in the soft copy format, right, they have legal validity. Companies, government institutions accept the online copy of it. Why? Because it is legally recognized. IT Act gives legal recognition for electronically stored documents. It is as good as your legal document, official physical document. For example, you can have an electronic version of your passport, of your driving license, right? You can use this to submit to a bank, to submit to the SIM card company or to the government itself, to avail services from them, to establish your identity. This document, which is in electronic digital form, it has validity legally because of the IT Act. IT Act gave that recognition. Same with digital signatures. These are unique electronic signatures that individuals and institutions can use to sign documents, right? It is used to establish the authenticity of the document. So digital signatures are given legal recognition, and authority was also set up to issue and regulate digital signatures in the country. The controller of certifying authorities has been set up, which issues unique digital signatures to private and government institutions, through which they certify the documents that they are issuing. For example, if you file IT returns with the IT department, it comes digitally signed. That digital signature of IT department is a unique digital signature given by the authority so that it can help identify that it's a legitimate document. Similarly, when you get Form 16 from your employer, right, it will be digitally signed by the chief financial officer of your company, right? This signature is unique to that company. If you look at the security certificate, you will get to know this is genuine, this is authentic, because the controller of certifying authority would have issued and regulated these digital signatures. Even individually, we can sign documents electronically. That has legal validity as well, because IT Act provides for that legal recognition. This has simplified business. This has simplified governance in the country. I'll give you one example. I'm sure many of you will be investing in the stock markets, right? Or at least in mutual funds, or maybe you have accounts on various trading platforms and you're investing in equity itself. Now, when you opened a Demat account, be it with your bank, be it with platforms like Zerodha, Grow, right, etc., whatever platform you're using, you never paid a visit to them, to their office. You never gave any physical documents to them, correct? You did everything online. You just downloaded their application, gave some basic details, uploaded your digital documents, even KYC verification would have happened online. Right? They will ask you to open the camera, take a picture, even hold a signature in front of the camera to verify that it is actually you. And AI tools will verify this picture and the signature with your actual documents, and your KYC verification is done. Many years ago, you may not know this, let's say 10, 15 years ago, if you opened a bank account, if you opened a demat account, the bank was sending correspondents to your house physically to check whether this is the correct person, whether this person is residing here. From there to complete paperless online KYC verification. See where we have come. This is possible because of digital signatures and electronic documents. Things have become so simple today for companies and governments to run businesses, to deliver services, and it's beneficial for citizens as well. That is the power of information technology and the internet. And this whole transaction is regulated by IT Act. It is this law that gives recognition to your digital signatures, the digital documents, and the electronic records. A cyber appellate tribunal has been set up to resolve any disputes related to IT and IT services. Is that clear? The act was even amended, and many related laws were amended to update them. Because please understand, we had many colonial era laws and we still have many colonial era laws. We have laws from 1960s, 70s, 80s. That is the pre-internet era, pre-computer era. They don't account for computers and internet. They don't account for digital evidence, digital forensics, right? Net banking. These concepts are new. But if you look at laws like RBI Act, Banker Book Evidence Act, IPC and Indian Evidence Act, these are very old laws. Some are British era laws and some are from the pre-computer, pre-internet era. Now, without amending these laws, how will you enable e-governance? How will you enable digital delivery of services? Let's say police are investigating a case. They get some evidence in a computer. That evidence has no validity if the law is not updated. So Indian Evidence Act was amended through the IT Act, giving recognition for digital forensics, digital evidence, computer or cyber evidence was given legal recognition, which makes it acceptable in a court of law. Cyber crimes were given recognition under IPC. The RBI Act was amended to enable digital banking, net banking, digital payments. Banker Book Evidence Act was amended to provide for digital maintenance of accounts, because previously manual accounts were maintained, handwritten accounts. So we moved away from the system to introduce digital banking, and all these old laws were amended to comply the laws with the new technologies that had come up. So this is what IT Act achieved. Next, the law was amended in 2008 to expand the definition of cyber crimes. All forms of cyber crimes are defined here, including the punishments, the offenses. From cyber frauds to phishing attacks, video voyeurism, where someone is secretly watching you by switching on the cameras in your computers and your phones, to e-commerce frauds, theft of identity and data. So all such cyber crimes, right, they have been defined here under IT Act, and they are declared as criminal offenses. Is that clear? But however, there is a lot of criticism against this law. There is a lot of criticism against it. One major criticism is that the law is outdated. In 2023, 2024, we still have a law passed in 2000, amended in 2008. It doesn't account for the new advances in technology. right? The digital payment interface that we have introduced, the Aadhaar based verification which we have introduced, evolutions in artificial intelligence and how it impacts IT and cyber crimes. Those things are not considered. Ransomware attacks are not considered here. So there are many legal loopholes. That is why there is a demand to remove this law and bring a new law. It has been reported that the Modi government is working on a new law called the Digital India Bill. It will be introduced most likely after the elections, after the new government is formed. The next government is likely to introduce it. So Digital India Bill is proposed to replace the IT Act. It is supposed to address all the shortcomings of this law. All right. This law had triggered a lot of controversy as well, especially Section 66A of the IT Act. This was one of the most misused provisions of the law. This provision defined offensive messages sent through communication services. If someone had sent an offensive message through a communication device, this was seen as a criminal offense. You could be charged, and sometimes bail would be denied because that is how stringent this provision was. And you would be punished for sending offensive messages. So you might think, what's the problem? If someone is sending offensive messages, that is wrong. It's a crime. So they should be punished, right? That could be the argument. But let me tell you what was wrong here. The law does not define what is offensive. It only says sending offensive messages is a crime, and it describes a punishment. So who will determine what is offensive? This is very subjective. What is offensive to me may not be offensive to you. Correct? I might send a joke, or I might put up a Facebook post criticizing a political leader or a party. I think it's my right to criticize, but you might get offended by it. So tomorrow, if you go file a complaint against me saying that this guy has put up an offensive message on a digital platform, the police will actually come and arrest me under this section. In India, this was one of the most misused provisions. Many innocent people, they got arrested, they spent a lot of time in jail, they got punished as well, just because they forwarded something on WhatsApp, just because they criticized a politician, a leader, or a party, or a religion. See, in any democratic country, you have the right to express yourself, the right to criticize the government, be it the prime minister, be it a cabinet minister, be it an opposition leader. You have every right to criticize them, right against them, anywhere. Right? That is a basic democratic right. You can criticize government policies. You can even make jokes about them. You can even make cartoons, caricatures to spread a political message. Have you seen in newspapers the drawings of R.K. Lakshman, the caricature drawings? Right? There is a humorous angle to it, but they are highlighting a important issue, social, political issue. So they make fun of political leaders, politicians, and well-known people. And that is an art form. It's a creative form of expressing dissent, expressing criticism. If this is also deemed as offensive, right, and someone goes and files a complaint against you, the police will allow the case to be registered. They will come and arrest the person, and they will face criminal charges. Many school-going kids were arrested because they posted something on Facebook. Several old people who were forwarding messages, cartoons, jokes on WhatsApp got arrested. These are innocent people. They didn't do anything wrong. Because the law did not define what is offensive. Who will determine this? The police will determine it. Now imagine a party member, right, or some guy who is a member of a religious group. They might take offense to everything that you say. So if they go file a complaint saying you offended their religious sentiment, you offended their leader, the police will accept that argument and they'll come book, file charges on you, and they'll arrest you as well. So this is how Section 66A was being misused. Many cases were filed. Many people, innocent people, were punished, right? And they were held in jail without any relief, without any justice. Finally, in a landmark case, the Supreme Court of India declared this as unconstitutional. This was the Shreya Singhal case. Please remember this, it's very important. In the Shreya Singhal case of 2015, the Supreme Court delivered a landmark verdict. It said Section 66A is ultra violates the Constitution, meaning it violates the constitutional principles. It violates Article 19. This can be easily misused by the police and the ruling parties at the center and state government to target criticism, to target journalists and political opponents, to curb freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and freedom of press. So Supreme Court threw out this provision and declared it as unconstitutional. So now you don't have Section 66A under IT Act. Supreme Court threw it out. But there are other similar provisions which are also equally concerning. There's another provision that provides for objectionable messages. Now, what is objectionable? Law doesn't say anything. Who will decide what is objectionable? Police will decide. That is the problem here, the discretion being given, vague, broad definitions. This will always get misused by political elements, right? So there are many problems with the IT Act. So there is a proposal to replace this with the Digital India Act. Now coming to the final part, we will talk about the institutions India has created, the policies that we have. Now we have understood the law, the legal framework. So let's talk about the institutions and the policies through which India is improving its cybersecurity. India has established an institution called CERT-In, Computer Emergency Response Team India. This is the nodal agency to protect the cyberspace of India. All right, it's very important for prelims as well. CERT-In was established in 2004. It functions under Ministry of Electronics and IT. It's under the MeitY Ministry, that is Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, established in 2004, and it has been given legal validity as well under the IT Act. The Information Technology Act recognizes CERT-In as the nodal agency to deal with cyber threats and protect the Indian cyberspace. It functions 24/7. It has a dedicated national watch and alert system that looks out for threats in India and around the world. It works with foreign counterparts as well, right? Collaborates with them. It scans the cyberspace to understand the new malwares that are emerging, to understand the vulnerabilities present in computer hardware, softwares, and networks. It works with tech companies, IT industry. It employs a pool of cybersecurity professionals and researchers to step up India's fight against cyber crimes and cyber attacks. Is that clear? It maintains a constant watch, constant alert. It collects data, analyzes the developing trends. It even provides forecasts and provides alerts to all the stakeholders. Let's say a new malware has emerged which is infecting computers in other countries. So CERT-In will realize that this could affect Indian computers as well. Immediately it will prepare an alert and it will disseminate the alert to all stakeholders. It will alert the government agencies, the military, intelligence agencies, private companies as well, and even the common public. It will engage with media to spread the information that there is a new malware and you have to protect against it. It will tell you what measures to be taken, how you can protect your computer systems and networks, and these standards are established by CERT-In. All right, the standard security protocols are recommended by CERT-In. And more importantly, it initiates emergency handling of these incidents. It can respond against the cyber attacks to defend the Indian cyberspace. Is that clear? It can launch counterattacks to defend the cyberspace and to repel these cyber attackers. So that is the job of CERT-In. It also helps the government in framing policies, in advising, and in coming out with guidelines, right? So it performs all these tasks as the nodal agency for cybersecurity. This is a civilian agency manned by civilians, civilian officers. It's not an intelligence agency, it's not a military agency. It's a civilian agency. Understood? Like ISRO, for example. ISRO is the civilian space agency of India, right? So that is how CERT-In is. It's a civilian agency responsible for defending the cyberspace and responding to cyber attacks to defeat these incidents. Got it? Next, India adopted a national cyber security policy in 2013. The then Manmohan Singh government brought out a dedicated policy to promote India's preparedness towards cybersecurity. In fact, UPSC has already asked a mains question on this. All right. So UPSC is unlikely to ask the question again in mains, but in prelims there can be a question, because a complete question was asked on this in mains, in one of the previous mains exam. So UPSC will not repeat because this is a very factual topic, but in prelims there can be some related question. So let's take a quick look at the provisions of National Cybersecurity Policy. What are the key provisions? The primary goal of the policy is to prepare India for emerging cyber threats and to create a roadmap to deal with various cyber threats. The goal is to improve our capabilities, improve our preparedness, and it also establishes few new institutions to deal with cyber threats. For example, it has provided for establishment of new national agencies and institutions, such as the National Critical Information Infrastructure Protection Center, NCIIPC. This is a new institution created after 2013. It is solely responsible for defending the critical information infrastructure of India. Now, you already know what is our critical information infrastructure. So protecting this infrastructure and defending them from any attack is the responsibility of NCIIPC. This is again a civilian cyber agency responsible for exclusive protection to the critical information infrastructure of India. It has been set up under NTRO, the National Technical Research Organization. We have studied about NTRO in previous classes. I've told you it's a technical intelligence agency of India. It specializes in technical intelligence gathering, right? So under NTRO, NCIIPC has been constituted as recommended by the policy. So this agency protects the critical information infrastructure of all the major infrastructure projects in India, from the government and defense sector to telecom, banking, finance, power sector, etc. In fact, we have set up sectoral certs for some important sectors like finance and defense. Within the finance and defense sector, localized computer emergency response teams also have been set up to improve cybersecurity. Is that clear? So NCIIPC plays a very big role today in protecting India's critical information infrastructure from any kind of cyber attacks, especially cyber warfare attempts of other countries. Usually it is other governments or even terror groups who might try to target our critical information infrastructure. So to repel these attacks and to defend our systems against these attacks, a civilian agency has been set up, a dedicated agency under NTRO. This was recommended in the policy and we have already established this institution. The policy talks about creating a workforce of 5 lakh trained cybersecurity professionals. One of the critical gaps identified by the policy was that even though we produce a number of engineers, number of software engineers, and even though we are an IT hub, we did not have enough cybersecurity professionals in the country. There was a big shortage of manpower. The problem was at the college, university level, dedicated cybersecurity courses were not available before 2010, 2012. Is that clear? And post-graduation, even in the industry, there weren't enough jobs available, enough training available to create a pool of talent so that we create cybersecurity professionals. We didn't have that. So this policy laid down a roadmap to ensure that we have a readily available pool of at least 500,000 cybersecurity professionals. So that's why today, many colleges and universities in the country, they are offering cybersecurity courses. You can graduate and even do your post-graduation in cybersecurity. These are specialist courses. And there are many employment and training opportunities for them. After they finish college, private companies will hire, government organizations will hire. So this talent pool is being created so that we have a ready manpower available to fill the gaps that are available. The policy recommended fiscal incentives for private companies to encourage them to adopt the best cyber safety practices. Because Indian companies were very complicit. Even Indian government agencies were very complicit when it came to cybersecurity. They weren't taking it seriously. The point is, when it comes to a cyber attack, any weakness is a weakness for the whole country. Even a weakness in your mobile phone, in your personal laptop, weakness in a company's computer systems is also a threat to the whole nation. Because attackers can exploit that and then spread the attack to other systems and other networks in the country. So we can become resilient against cyber attacks only when we are more proactive when it comes to cybersecurity. So it's important to encourage private businesses as well, individuals, government organizations to adopt the best security practices. So for encouraging this practice in the industry, the policy recommended fiscal benefits, meaning whoever implements the CERT-in standards, they will get tax benefits, they will get subsidies, concessional loans, and this will be attractive for private businesses and it will motivate them to adopt the best cyber safety practices. It even talked about the need for data protection of our citizens. It called for a law, a policy to protect the data privacy and data security of our citizens. This was also one of the basis for which, based on which the data protection law was finally drafted, right? It gave a push for a data protection law to protect the data privacy and data security of our citizens. And it has many other minor provisions as well. Like, for example, it encourages proper legislative intervention to deal with cyber crimes so that we can improve our cyber investigation, cyber forensics, so that we can catch hold of cyber criminals and prosecute them and punish them. It talks about improving the security checks of the hardware and software that we are importing into the country. Because this is a huge security gap. Even though India is a IT hub, we don't produce much of the hardware. Most of the hardware is imported from China, Taiwan, Philippines, and other countries. When it comes to software, even here we are weak. Most operating systems are by American companies, Microsoft, Apple, Google, right? These governments might have control over them. They might be forcing those companies to create a security backdoor so that they can hack into our systems, right? The telecom and internet equipment we are installing, most of it is from Chinese companies like Huawei. And Huawei is known to be close to Chinese intelligence and the PLA. There are widespread concerns that China has forced Huawei to create security backdoors in the telecom and internet equipment. So this creates a backdoor for Chinese intelligence to hack into our networks and spy on India, or even launch a cyber war against India. So it's very important to conduct security checks and audits of foreign equipment that we are installing and procuring. The hardware and software that we are procuring and installing, they have to be thoroughly audited and checked to see if there are any security backdoors built into the components. It calls for public-private participation to create the culture of cyber safety, create a safe ecosystem, and it calls for indigenous development of technology. It called for self-reliance, Atmanirbharata basically. To reduce our dependency on foreign hardware and software, it called upon the government and the private industry to indigenously develop various technologies. So these are some of the key points related to the national cybersecurity policy. But the biggest development because of the policy was that two important institutions were created because of the policy. One was NCIIPC to protect our critical information infrastructure, and the other was NCCC, National Cyber Coordination Center. So the policy created two new institutions, NCIIPC, which we studied, to protect our critical information infrastructure, and NCCC. What is NCCC? It is essentially a surveillance agency under CERT-In that will monitor the threats. And if India is under cyber attack, if there is a major cyber attack, especially a cyber espionage or cyber war attempt, it will act as a coordinating agency with all the stakeholders. It will coordinate with CERT-In, with the armed forces, with the intelligence agencies, concerned ministries. So it will act as a coordinating platform. Is that clear? So such a coordination center is set up under CERT-In itself. It constantly looks out for organized attempts to spy on India, to launch a war against India. And if such emerge, it will become the coordinating center where all intelligence agencies, armed forces, concerned ministries, and CERT-In and other agencies, they all come together to share information and to plan a coordinated response. So these are the institutions created by the National Cybersecurity Policy of India. So basically, please make a note. There are three civilian agencies that we have in the field of cybersecurity. There are three civilian cybersecurity agencies in India. Which are the three? One is CERT-In, which is under Ministry of Electronics and IT. This is the nodal agency for defending the cyberspace. Then second, under CERT-In, there is a coordination center, that is NCCC, National Cyber Coordination Center, that will act as a coordinating platform when India is under attack. All right. This is the second agency, the civilian agency we have. Then we have NCIIPC to defend our critical information infrastructure. This is under NTRO. These are the three civilian cybersecurity agencies in India. We also have a dedicated military agency for cybersecurity. It was recently set up. It's called the Defense Cyber Agency. This is an armed force. These are civilian agencies which I've written about, manned by civilian officers. But Defense Cyber Agency is a tri-service armed force. So soldiers from Indian Army, Indian Navy, and Indian Air Force, they are drawn into this armed force unit. These are the specialists in cyber warfare who are drawn from three armed forces, and they make up this tri-service agency called Defense Cyber Agency. If India ever goes to a cyber war, it will be the Defense Cyber Agency that will lead that war. This is the military agency, the armed force. It is developing both defensive cyber tools and even offensive cyber weapons. If India ever comes under a major attack, it is this military agency which will fight back and defend by coordinating with the civilian agencies that are set up. Clear? If India has to ever launch an offensive war, a cyber war against a target country, it will be led by Defense Cyber Agency, which is the military force. So these are the major institutions we have created. CERT-In, NCCC, NCIIPC, three civilian agencies, and one military agency, that is Defense Cyber Agency. Kindly remember these points. Very, very important for your prelims, right? If not for mains, definitely for your prelims. So let's take a short break and we'll come back to close this chapter. I just have few points to discuss. We have the Budapest Convention. We'll discuss this after the break. And I think we can close for today. Or if we have time, I can start with money laundering. So take a 15 minutes break. Come back at 7:30. Come back at 7:30. We'll continue maybe for 40-45 minutes or a little more than that. We'll close this and we'll try to start money laundering, and rest we can pick it up by tomorrow. All right. So I'll see you in 15 minutes. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the last part of today's discussion. So, with your permission, I would like to extend the class by half an hour because in the morning, due to the technical issue, we lost 30 minutes. If you're okay with it, if everyone agrees, let's have just 1 hour of discussion, 7:30 to 8:30. Let me know if it's okay. If everyone is okay with it, let me know with yes or no. Just 30 minutes, just to make up for the time that we lost in the morning. Very good. Majority of you are saying yes. Very good. I really appreciate that because I know it's not easy to sit in a weekend class for so many hours. That really shows your commitment as well. Really appreciate that. Keep up that spirit. That is what is needed to crack this exam, right? This is a very tough competitive exam. But if you make up your mind and if you put in that effort consistently, nothing will stop you from clearing this exam. Okay? So let's continue with the last part of the discussion for today. And the rest we can do it tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll have a class from 6 to 9:30 in the morning so that we can wrap up the few remaining topics. Now let's close this and see if we can cover money laundering. So please note, tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock, we'll have the last class. So now we have to understand if there are any global conventions to deal with cyber crimes and cyber security. Is there any UN convention or any kind of global treaty or convention to deal with cyber crimes? See, under the UN, there is no convention or treaty as of now to deal with cyber crimes and cyber safety. Attempts have been made. Some countries have proposed an idea, like Russia, for example, had proposed a UN convention, but it wasn't supported by all the countries. It wasn't adopted. So under the UN, you don't have any treaty or convention that specifically deals with cybercrime or cyber safety. It might come up in the future. There are many countries pushing this idea. Maybe in the coming years, we might have a UN convention. But as of now, we don't have any UN treaty or convention. But however, there is an international convention called Budapest Convention. It was brought out by the Council of Europe. It's a regional grouping in Europe. Don't confuse this with European Union. European Union is different. There is another grouping in Europe called Council of Europe. Some European countries are members of this organization. So this group brought out the Cyber Crime Convention. It's called the Council of Europe's Cybercrime Convention. Sometimes it's just called Budapest Convention or the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime. This is the only convention at the global level that promotes international cooperation between the members of the convention who have signed it. It provides for a platform for the signatories to cooperate and work together to tackle cyber crimes. The last I checked, it had around 64 members. Usually it is the Western countries which dominate this convention. Most Western countries, West European countries, US and other US allies, they are party to this convention. They have signed it, adopted it, and it was brought out in the year 2001 and it came into force in 2004. So these are some basic facts for your prelims. Now, what does this convention do? Under the convention, the members are obligated to cooperate with each other to investigate cyber crimes and to prevent cyber crimes. Once a country signs and adopts the convention, it is an obligation to cooperate with the other signatory countries, which means you'll have to share evidence. You have to integrate your computer networks as well. Essentially, your cyberspace has to be closely integrated with the other countries. And if their law enforcement agencies are asking information, asking evidence, you'll have to assist them. Similarly, you can also request their assistance. If one country is facing a cyber crime or a cyber threat, it can request the other members to assist in dealing with those threats and also in investigating those crimes and in punishing those cyber criminals. This is the purpose of the Budapest Convention. Now, the big question is whether India is a signatory or not. Has India signed Budapest Convention or not? The answer is no. India has not signed the Budapest Convention. We have considered this idea. The debate has been held within the Indian government, right? Whether should we join Budapest Convention or not. The Home Ministry is of the opinion that we should sign, because Home Ministry deals with cyber crimes at the national level. It has established the National Cybercrime Reporting Portal, which I was mentioning earlier. If you're a victim of a cyber crime, or if you know any victims of cyber crime, right, this is where you go register your complaint. So MHA looks at cyber crimes very seriously and coordinates with state police and the cyber police of state police forces to crack these cyber crimes. So MHA is of the opinion that we should sign it, because we will get international assistance, we'll get international help in targeting cyber criminals. But however, Intelligence Bureau is opposed to it. On the grounds of national security, the IB has strongly opposed India joining the convention, because there is a fear that if we integrate our networks, if we are forced to share information, this could be misused by certain countries. Even friendly countries, they might use this to spy on India. They might use this to sabotage India's cyberspace. So there is a security concern raised by IB. So because of this, India has not signed the Budapest Convention. The IB is strongly opposing it. Is that clear? But you never know, this position might change, because MHA has been pushing for it, because MHA believes that we will get international assistance to tackle cyber crimes. And anyways, most of them are friendly countries. So it says that India should join. But IB and the intelligence agencies, they are opposing it on security grounds. Now, in the last two slides, I've given you some points, some suggestions that you can include in your answers. Okay, these are some suggestions that you can provide if there is a mains question on cybersecurity. Please go through them, right? There are a few suggestions on how we can further improve our cybersecurity, how we can address the gaps that are present, how we can learn from other countries as well and adopt their models. So regarding this, I've added few suggestions. So this can be a way forward. You can use those points and suggestions when you're concluding your answer. So this would be a great way to end your answers. So kindly go through that once. I've added some, I think 15 or 18 points. Please go through that and you can try and use some of them in your answers related to questions on cybersecurity. Now, please take a look at the questions that have come from this chapter. We actually got some interesting questions. This is a question from 2013. What are social networking sites? What security implications do these sites present? Very simple, straightforward. You just have to explain what is social media. You can talk about the features of social media, the advantages that it provides, and then discuss the security threats that arise from its misuse. And it's always better you give examples, right? So this is something we have clearly explained and studied. So I expect you to write a good answer for this. Then see, there is a question on cyber warfare. How there is a link with terror groups as well. Cyber warfare is considered by some defense analysts to be a larger threat than even Al-Qaeda or terrorism. What do you understand by cyber warfare? Outline the cyber threats which India is vulnerable to. Bring out the state of country's preparedness to deal with the same. So what you can do here is first explain cyber war. Mention that cyberspace has become the fifth dimension of warfare, right? Then explain why cybersecurity is so challenging. Then you can explain the different threats emerging from the cyberspace. It's not just cyber war, even cyber terrorism is a threat. Since there is a mention of Al Qaeda and UPSC is comparing cyber war with terrorist groups and saying that cyber warfare is a bigger threat, you can say that even terrorist groups have tried to develop cyber weapons to launch cyber attacks, to engage in cyber terrorism. So, indeed, cyber war, cyber terrorism represents a big risk, and you can discuss the weaknesses, the vulnerability of India, right? And what measures are we taking? What legal framework do we have? What policies do we have? What institutions have we created? So you can mention that and you can conclude the answer. So there have been quite a few questions. There was a question on the need for a digital armed force. See, this is the question on the national cybersecurity policy. It was asking you to critically evaluate the policy itself. Then there was a question on internet and social media being used by non-state actors. How terrorist groups and hostile elements can use internet, social media to create security problems. So these are the topics we have already studied in detail. There was a question on Sri Krishna Committee report, data protection. There was a question on Cyber Dome project as well. I think a student was asking, Himanshu was asking, what is Cyber Dome? Cyber Dome is an initiative of Kerala Police. The Kerala State Police, they established a dedicated R&D center called Cyber Dome. It specializes in research on cyber crimes and it assists the Kerala police in investigation of cyber crimes. In 2019, the topic was in news. That's when Kerala had inaugurated the Cyber Dome, which was this project of Kerala State Police. And it became the first police force in the country to have a dedicated research institution for cyber crimes. Along with it being a research institution, it works with Kerala Police to assist in investigating cyber crimes. So you can explain what is Cyber Dome and discuss how it is useful in controlling internet-based crimes in India. So talk about various cyber frauds and scams, how Indians are getting duped, and how these initiatives by state police forces can help in tackling those crimes. So these are the kind of questions you can expect here. It is all related to current affairs. As I told you, you don't need a textbook. You don't have to focus too much on background and the static part, right? It's all about current events, what's happening around you, what you're reading in newspapers. This is where you get your information. So I have simplified this for you by presenting this in a structured format. Now build upon this. Build upon this by adding current affairs, current updates. So for that, you have to read newspapers regularly. At least watch newspaper analysis, attend the webinars, make notes, and that is more than enough for these topics. Is that clear? Now let's look at another small topic called money laundering and terrorist financing. We have to understand what is money laundering. How does money laundering pose a threat? Why is it a security threat? Then we have to discuss the global framework we have to counter money laundering and what India has done to counter money laundering. These are the only few topics we have to study here. It's a small chapter. So let's begin with the definition of money laundering. Let's understand what is this. From the first class, I've been using this term, right? I said it's connected with organized crime and terrorist financing. I've told you it's an economic threat and a security threat, right? This is what we know. Now, let's look at some details. Let's clearly understand what is money laundering. How is it a threat? Money laundering is basically an illegal process through which black money is converted to white. That is the simplest definition I can give you. Or you can say that money laundering is a process, it's an illegal process through which illegally acquired wealth through illegal sources is converted into legal wealth. This process is called money laundering. Is that clear? The process of converting black money into white, or converting illegal wealth into legal wealth. Is that clear? So let us understand, how can illegal wealth be generated? What are the sources of generating black money? Can you tell me? Let's make it little interactive. You tell me, how can one generate black money? How can one generate illegal wealth? What activities can generate illegal wealth? Very good. Femina has given one answer. She says tax evasion. By evading taxes, right? That wealth becomes black money. It becomes illegal wealth. Who are the ones evading taxes? High net worth individuals, businessmen, celebrities, or maybe corrupt politicians, corrupt government officers who have made a lot of money. They will not disclose their actual income. They'll conceal their income from the government to avoid paying taxes, right? Or even major corporations, private companies, to avoid paying the corporate taxes and the related taxes, they might conceal their profits, underreport their profits deliberately, and hide a part of their wealth. This hidden money on which taxes have not been paid, where taxes have been evaded, that wealth becomes black money. So tax evasion by high net worth individuals, basically by the rich, the super rich, by celebrities, by big private companies, this money is black money, which is concealed from the government. Next, some are saying Hawala, crypto, then shell companies. See, these terms are related to money laundering, but that is not generating black money. Cryptocurrencies are not generating black money. Hawala transaction doesn't generate black money, right? Shell company doesn't generate black money. They are connected with money laundering. They are used in money laundering. All right, so don't get confused. I'll explain how it works. Good. Some of them have said smuggling, arms trafficking, human trafficking. Very good. Basically, organized crime, any illegal criminal activity, smuggling of drugs, smuggling of arms and weapons, human trafficking, all the illegal activities we have studied, the organized criminal activities, the wealth that they generate, it is illegal. It's against the law, right? Obviously, criminals don't go report the income and pay taxes on it, right? This is black money. This is illegal wealth. Next, any other source? Very good. Meghna and Veera Tulsi, they have mentioned one more very important point. Corruption. Corruption by politicians, ministers, and government officials. Basically, the bribes that they take, that is illegal, right? That's not legitimate wealth. If an IAS officer has hundreds of crores of rupees, if a minister or a politician has thousands of crores of rupees, that is not legitimate. They can't earn that kind of money through legal methods, right? That means they would have taken bribes. The money generated through corrupt activities, through corruption in the government, generates black money. Next, anything else? There's one more source, one more major source that you are missing. There is one other source that you are missing. Can you think for a second? It's something that many of you would have dealt with. Many of us, even common people, we get involved in that transaction. In many cases, we are also part of that black money generation. What is it? Money lending? No. Not paying GST, that is tax evasion. That's already covered. I'm referring to property deals, real estate. If you've ever bought property, you would know that you are never paying the actual government price. That has become an illegal market. We always pay an inflated price. So this extra amount at which you are buying property, if you report it to the government, it's fine. That is legal. But if you conceal it from the government, if you provide cash to the seller, that is black money. Is that clear? Let's say in a posh locality in Mumbai, let's say Bandra, property prices are very high. Government rate, market rate, the government fixed market rate, let's say it's around, for a property, it's around 10 crore rupees, for example. If the deal happens at around 10 crores, right, and you report that entirely and you will pay taxes on it, this is completely legal. But let's say buyer and seller, they agree to trade this property at 20 crores because of high demand in the market. Even this is fine, it's legal, as long as it is reported to the government. As long as the money paid is legal and reported and taxes are paid, even this is okay. If demand is there, if buyer and seller are okay to strike a deal at 20 crores, government will not stop you. You have every right to do that. Problem arises when the seller and the buyer try to conceal it. On the paper, they will show that the deal happened for 10 crores at government rate. They'll pay only taxes for the government rate. The remaining 10 crores which was paid, that is not shown. That transaction is done through cash. So the cash trade, which is not reported, on which taxes are not paid, also generates black money. Now, this black money, which is with an individual, this amount of black money is actually useless for the owner. Did you know that? Let's say there is a IAS officer who's corrupt. He has made a lot of money with corruption. But this money is useless. He can't spend it freely. Why? If they try to spend everything, right, they'll get caught. It will raise suspicion. How can an IAS officer go and buy a BMW, buy properties, buy luxury gadgets? That will raise suspicion amongst the taxation authorities, CBI, ED. They'll all keep a check on the financial transactions happening in the country. If they try to spend all that money, and if it's beyond your income source, right, red flags will be raised, investigations will happen, and they'll get caught. Same with companies, celebrities, politicians who are concealing their income. Same with criminals. Criminals can't go spending the money directly. They'll get caught. Let's say there is an industrialist. All right. He has made a lot of money, which is large part of it is black. But he can't go splurging that wealth, right? Because if he does that, red flags will go up in the banking system, financial system, and he'll get caught. So what will the owners of black money do with all that money? They'll have hundreds of crores, thousands of crores, millions of dollars. It is pretty much useless for them unless they are risking arrest. If they're ready to take the risk, then yes, they can spend. Recently, did you know about the Mahadev app? Right? It was a scandal. That guy had made a lot of illegal wealth, splurging money in Dubai. He had evaded detection for many years, but he did one mistake. He had a luxury wedding. 200 crores were spent. Immediately, the authorities went on alert. Red flags went up in the system. How can someone spend 200 crores on a wedding? Right? Thus, that led to investigations, and now he's facing money laundering charges, corruption charges, etc. So black money is pretty much useless. You can't spend it freely, openly, without raising suspicion and without getting arrested. So then why are they making this black money? What will they do with it? This is where money laundering comes into picture. Through the money laundering route, the owner of the black money will get it converted to white. They'll make it legal. Once it becomes legal, now the owner can easily spend. They can do anything officially, legally, they can do it because the money has been transformed into white. This process is called money laundering. There are 3 steps involved in the process: placement, layering, integration. Very important for your prelims as well. Prelims question can be asked: what are the 3 steps involved in money laundering? Placement, layering, and integration. It has to be in the same order. You can't interchange the order. So let us understand briefly how this process will work. Let's say this owner, right, who owns a lot of black money, let's say he's a celebrity, he's an industrialist, or a politician, or a government officer. They have a lot of black money with them. Now they want to get it converted to white. This individual alone cannot do anything. Money laundering is not done by few individuals or by a small group. Money laundering is a global level scandal. There is an involvement of many middlemen and institutions, from banks to corrupt officials to private consulting firms and investment companies to CAs and accountants. They're all involved in this scandal, and this is a global level scandal. It can't be done in one country. The money which is black is moved around the world in order to clean the money. That's why the word laundering is used. What is laundry? Laundry is to wash. We often refer to laundry when we wash clothes, that I gave my clothes for laundry, right? When your cloth is washed, what is being done? The dirt on your cloth is being removed. It is being cleaned. Something similar is done here with black money. Not literally, right? But there is a process through which the dirt on the money is removed. What is the dirt on the money? What is the dirt that is present here on the black money? The illegal source of this money. That is the dirt. If authorities investigate where this money came from, and if they see that it's because of corruption or tax evasion or criminal activity, right, they'll get to know that this is black. That is one dirt sitting on the black money. The second dirt sitting on the black money is the identity of this owner. Whom does it belong to? These are the 2 dirts sitting on black money. That is why the owner can't spend it. One, illegal source will be exposed. Second, identity of owner will be exposed. So to make this money clean, to wash this money, to launder this money, you just have to remove the dirt. Basically, move the money so far away by conducting complex transactions around the world so that you remove the source itself. Even if someone traces back and investigates where the money came from, they will never ever reach the illegal source. They will never reach that owner. Essentially, the money has to be distanced from the owner and from the illegal source where it was generated. And through a series of complex financial transactions, this money becomes legal money, legal wealth. The dirt is cleaned through these 3 steps. And even if someone were to investigate later, they will hit a dead end. Hundreds of transactions will happen around the world involving a global network of money laundering agents. Is that clear? So once the dirt is removed, once the owner's identity and the illegal source are distanced from the wealth, the money is as good as clean. If you can create a chain of transactions and documents showing that this came from a legal source and it belongs to someone else, the money is legal wealth. Now it's about bringing it back to the owner, showing it as the legitimate wealth of that owner. That is what is done in this process. So there are 3 steps involved. Now this owner of black money, right, who wants to convert this into white, he will approach money laundering agents. Of course, it's only done by high profile people. Ordinary person can't do it. You'll not even have such contacts. So high net worth individuals, large corporations, ministers, right, celebrities, They will have such contacts, right? Criminals, even terrorists might have such contacts. So what they do is they'll take this wealth. All right, let's say, for example, 100 crores. This guy, right? This owner of black money, he has 100 crores of black money. He wants to get it converted to white. He will approach these money laundering agents to get the task done. And what they do is they will move the money out of the country. This is called placement. All right, I'll explain how it works, how the placement step works. Now, if they try to move this money in one lump sum amount, they'll get caught. It's not possible to move 100 crores so easily, the two from an illegal source. So there are many methods available to move this money in small parts. So what they do is they will either smuggle some cash physically. Physical smuggling is also involved here. This is where criminal gangs, smugglers, couriers get involved. Innocent people are recruited by criminal gangs. They pay them small commissions and they are forced to carry cash outside of the country. They put up the cash bundles on their body, into their luggage. They have the risk of getting caught. But through various methods which are known to criminals, they'll try to send the cash out, at least some part of the cash out of the country. All right, that's one method. Or second, they will place the money into the banking system itself. This is done by committing fraud. It requires the help of the bank itself. So there might be a corrupt bank manager, or there might be corrupt government officials, RBI officials, who are working with money laundering agents for a commission. All the middlemen, they get a commission. Since the money involved is huge, everybody gets a cut of few thousand, few lakh rupees. So these agents, they will try to place the money into the banking system without raising suspicion. By making fraudulent entries, right? Some money is placed in the banking system. Some cash is taken out by smugglers. They will also carry out direct foreign transactions as well without raising a doubt. Maybe through a fake company, through fraudulent organizations. They will generate bills and invoices saying this company has purchased some raw material. In reality, that they wouldn't have purchased anything. It's a fake company, fake bill. But they will show it as a genuine transaction, as if they have bought something from a foreign company. So through various methods, the money is broken down into small parts and it is sent abroad and it is placed into the banking system as well. This process is called smurfing. Smurfing is the process of dividing the money into small sums and integrating it into the banking system, placing it into the banking system. If the manager is corrupt, he can make fraudulent entries in someone else's name, in someone else's bank account. Right? If deposits of 40,000, 60,000 is done frequently over a period of time, nobody will doubt. Nobody will raise a suspicion. If someone deposits 10 crores, 20 crores, automatically doubts will come. Red flags will go up. But if 40,000 and 30,000 rupees or even 51 lakh rupees is deposited over a period of time, it will not raise any suspicion. The two with forged documents, fake invoices and bills. Through all these methods, through smurfing, the money is introduced into the banking system in India and even abroad. Is that clear? This is called placement. They are placing the money back into the financial system without raising a doubt. Someone else is doing it. The agents are doing it. The owner is not at all involved. They are breaking down the money to avoid any doubts, any suspicion. They also use Hawala transactions, the Hawala route, to move the money out. Hawala transaction is an informal banking method. It's a type of Islamic banking. All right. In Hawala transaction, there is no evidence, no trail, no records kept. In fact, the money never leaves the country. Hawala transaction works by word of mouth. Let's say there is a Hawala agent in India. This money laundering agent approaches the Hawala agent. He tells him that, see, I have to move 10 crore rupees to Dubai. All right. He will tell them who should receive the money in Dubai. This agent, Hawala agent, calls his network in Dubai. They'll have counterparts. So they will tell them, pay the equivalent of 10 crores in dirhams and US dollars to the contact of this money laundering agent. It all works by word of mouth. Just through phone calls, secret passwords, the transaction is carried out. The money will actually never leave. The money laundering agent pays 10 crores to Hawala agent, tells him where the money should go. And the Hawala agent calls his counterpart, asking him to give the equivalent amount to the recipient. So money never left. The money is still here in India, right? But the recipient got that money, the equivalent amount, as desired. So through code words and secret communication and through informal transaction, the money is reached to the recipient. So various methods are used for placement, from direct smuggling of cash by using criminal networks to misusing the banking system, right? Carrying out fraudulent foreign transactions to Hawala networks. All these methods are used to place the money in small parts into the banking system. Eventually, all the money is taken out. They might even park some of the money in Swiss banks and other banks in Panama. And there are many countries where there are very strict secretive bank laws. The banks will never reveal the identity of the owner, the money kept. They never share any information. So in such banks, which provide high level of secrecy for the depositor, they might park some money as well for some time. Then over a period of time, they'll bring all that money together in a foreign country. And now they will start the second step, that is layering. This is where professional expertise is needed. You need professional accountants, CAs. You need consulting firms, investment banks. There are some corrupt institutions which do this. There are private consulting firms, investment banking firms, which do this for a commission. They all get a cut. Is that clear? So what they do is they will start executing complex transactions, financial transactions. This is something a common man can never understand. Even law enforcement agencies will struggle to understand the complexity involved here in these transactions. That is why it's called layering. They'll carry out so many transactions that they will build layers upon layers. Just let's say $1 lakh, it's pushed through hundreds of transactions around the world. One entity to another, one market to another, one country to another. They keep moving the money, right? And they make it seem legitimate. So by making fraudulent entries, by forging records, by creating fake bills and invoices, accountants, CAs and investment banks, they know how to do it. They use their professional skills for the wrong purpose and they conduct these complex transactions, which we call as layering. So they conduct so many transactions that eventually this money right now is clean. It's free from the dirt. After a few months and after hundreds of transactions in other countries, right? The dirt is gone. Even if someone tries to go back and investigate, you will never reach the illegal source and the actual owner. So that is how the dirt is removed. That is what we say as laundering. The money is now clean. If you look back, if you look at let's say the last 10 transactions, everything looks clean. Everything is documented. There is evidence. There is taxes paid. Everything is done. So now this money which has been layered becomes clean money. This is laundered money. Because there is sufficient distance between the illegal source and the owner. That was the dirt, the two dirts. So that has been removed. So even if someone goes back and investigates, they will never reach the source. They'll hit dead ends. So such money which has been put through complex transactions through layering is called laundered money or clean money. It became legal wealth right now. Now the last step is remaining. What? This money should somehow reach that owner. Or else what's the point? He has to enjoy that. He has to spend that money. So the money has to come back. It has to be brought back. That is called integration. There are many methods of doing it. Usually they'll park this money in a tax haven. Have you heard of tax havens? Tax haven is a low tax or zero tax jurisdiction, like Mauritius. or Cayman Islands, Panama, Cook Islands, Liechtenstein, all these small countries, small island nations especially, they have declared themselves as a tax haven to attract investments because they don't have other sources of revenue. So to attract big investors, big companies to bring some funds, they levy very, very minimal tax or even sometimes zero tax. These are tax havens or low tax jurisdictions. Since they don't have to pay any additional taxes, they bring the clean money, the laundered money basically, and park it here in a tax haven where they would have set up shell corporations or shell companies. A shell company is a fake company again. They would have registered here in a tax haven just to enjoy the benefits of low taxation. Like in Mauritius, for example, there are so many registered offices. They will have a small office, some employees as well. But in reality, they have no legitimate business. They will be dealing with millions of dollars in transaction. They'll be receiving millions of dollars, investing millions of dollars. In reality, these companies have no business at all. These are fake. These are front organizations. That's what we call as a shell company or a shell corporation. They park the money here because they don't have to pay taxes, right? They show this as money belonging to the shell company, all right? And this shell company will invest this into India as FDI. They'll bring it as investment, legitimate FDI investment. They will invest it in the stock market through FII investments. They might use this to buy luxury commodities like expensive cars, yachts, gold, etc., which is reached into the hands of the owner eventually. So now the wealth is back into India. Directly or indirectly, it will reach the owner and now they can enjoy this money. They can show the proof as well that this was legitimate money which came. This was legal investment. Is that clear? So this global scandal is money laundering. So obviously many powerful people are involved. There are criminals, terror elements involved as well, because Hawala networks are very close to terror groups. Terrorists use Hawala transactions. Organized criminals who are involved in smuggling the money, in enabling these transactions, right? They are connected with terror groups. So they all get a commission, and that is how terrorist financing will happen, right? Or terror groups use the same method to launder money and to move money abroad to fund terrorist operations. So there is a direct connection here between money laundering and terrorist financing. You take the 9/11 attacks, for example, which we have studied. Al-Qaeda moved the money to US to fund the attack, to sponsor the attack through Hawala networks and money laundering channels. Is that clear? That clearly exposed the involvement of money laundering with terrorist financing. Even with Mumbai attacks, money was moved from Italy to Pakistan and to India through money laundering channels and Hawala networks. So such complex transactions are involved, and there is this direct connection here between organized crime, terrorist financing, and money laundering. Now, I'll give you a real world example to simplify this, to understand how it could actually work. I'll give you a hypothetical example, okay? Let's say there is a defense minister in India. I'm not talking about any particular defense minister. It is just a fictional story I'm telling you. Let's say there is a defense minister in India. Indian Air Force is looking to buy fighter jets. Domestically, we don't have advanced fighter jets. We are looking to get it from a foreign vendor. All right? A contract has been floated. Now, many foreign companies are competing. They want to win this contract because it's very lucrative for them. So American companies, French companies, many other European companies are competing. Now, one fighter jet company, which badly wants this deal, will strike a deal with the defense minister, a corrupt deal. Through arms agents, they'll approach the defense minister, they'll strike a deal, saying that if you give us the contract, if you ensure that we get the contract, we will give you a kickback. Let's say the deal is 20,000 crores. We will give you 1,000 crore rupees out of that. All right, the deal is struck. Now, this can't be done directly. It's not that defense minister can simply approve the contract and they'll come and give 1,000 crores in a suitcase. Doesn't work like that. They'll get caught. So what they do is, it's a very sophisticated way of doing it. The defense minister, let's say, he will push the Indian Air Force, the defense ministry, to lower the standards, the conditions, the requirements to match the standard of that aircraft that company is producing. In a way, the contract itself is modified to disqualify other competitors so that only that company will be eligible and it will get the contract. Tomorrow, if someone questions how did this company get the contract, they will show that, see, this was our requirement. This was the requirement of the Air Force. This is the only company which met the requirement, so we gave the contract, which is legal. Understood? The contract conditions itself are changed because defense minister can do that. So they rig the entire process in such a way that the contract goes to that company with whom the defense minister had a corrupt deal. Now that company is very happy. They got the contract. They're going to make a lot of money, create jobs, right? Now all that is left is for the company to pay the bribe to the defense minister. How will they pay this bribe? They can't bring 1,000 crores and give it to him. They can't directly transfer it to him. Doesn't work like that. So what that company will do, the defense company, right? Let's say 1,000 crores is, just for example, is 500 million. All right. They will take that money out of the company and they will show that they are buying something from other foreign companies. They would be working with money laundering agents who make this happen, who give this idea, that place orders. Since you're a defense company, you need components, you need raw materials. There are many fake companies that the agents will know. They will raise orders from them, saying we are procuring this component, this material from this company. All are fake. The companies don't even exist. They will just be registered. Bills are fake. By generating these bills, they'll show that the company spent that money. It is never shown as bribe. It is never shown as black money being pushed. No. They will take the actual cash with the company and place these fraudulent orders. So money is pushed out into other countries. Then the money laundering agents, they take over. They'll place it in the banking system, work with others to layer the money, to conduct complex transactions so that they remove the distance. They create a distance from the money and the defense company. In this case, what is the dirt? The dirt on the money is corruption. That is the source, illegal source. And owner, who is the owner? The defense company. The money belongs to the defense company. So this money is moved far away in small amounts to many different countries, jurisdictions, parked in many secretive banks, and eventually they conduct the step of layering. After placement, then layer it. They'll conduct hundreds of transactions, moving the money here and there, right? And finally, the money is far away from the company and from the source of corruption. Even if you go back and investigate, you can never connect this money with that company and with the corrupt deal between the company and the defense minister. So now this is clean. The money has become clean right now. So now it's all about bringing this money into the hands of the defense minister. So they will integrate this. How? They'll bring money into Mauritius, which is a tax haven, right? The money is clean, so they can bring it legally as a legitimate investment. They don't pay any taxes here. Through a shell company, they will invest this as FDI into a company owned by a relative of the defense minister. Defense minister has a relative or his driver, his friend, his party colleague, right? They have a company. They're running a business. Again, it might have been set up only for this purpose, running some basic operations just to receive foreign investment. Now, some shell company from Mauritius gives 500 million as investment. The money came back. The defense minister can use this when elections come around. It came as investments into a private company owned by someone else related to the defense minister, right? So the money can be now used for elections, right? Even if some investigation comes up, they can show that, see, this is legal wealth. This is legitimate wealth. They can splurge it. They can go and buy property as well. He can go and invest this in other investments. It becomes legal wealth. This is how it works. This is how complex money laundering is. It's a global level scandal involving high profile people, high profile institutions, along with criminals, terror elements, and other informal networks. So that is why money laundering is so difficult to tackle. Because genuinely, no government is interested to tackle the threat. They know that big names will come out. Even if they try, you can't find concrete evidence to link them and convict and prosecute them. It's very difficult. Unless countries cooperate, share information, right? It's very hard to crack down on money laundering. That is why it persists, not just in India, but around the world. There are many rich companies and individuals in US, developed countries who are also involved, who might be involved, right? So that is how this works. With an involvement of smuggling, hawala transactions, criminal activities, fraudulent investments, fraudulent transactions. So if you can understand the brief process, right, that is more than enough. You don't have to go into the details, just the 3 steps involved. How does it work and why is this a threat? Of course, it's an economic threat because government is losing revenue, right? The taxes would have helped the government to run welfare schemes, to create infrastructure. This money was hidden, right, generated through illegal activities. So that destabilizes our economy. And more importantly, this is a national security threat because the commission which is going out in between will fund criminal activities. It will fund terrorist activities. So that is where it becomes a national security threat. So to deal with this challenge, we have a global platform created called FATF, Financial Action Task Force. Is that clear? FATF is the global organization we have to counter money laundering. So let us stop the discussion here. We can continue this tomorrow because if I continue, I'll need some extra time to complete FATF. Let's do it tomorrow. Let's not rush. We'll finish the conceptual topics. We'll finish money laundering. Border management is important. The last chapter is very factual. Security forces. I can cover some of them. Rest we can read through the PPTs because it's all very factual. Like what is CRPF? What is IB? What is NIA? That we studied previously. So security forces is something we can go through easily. But let's not rush through money laundering and border security. Let's take it up tomorrow. So I'll stop here. Now, if you have questions, if you have doubts, let me know. I see that most of them are asking what's the time of tomorrow's class. As I told you, tomorrow morning, let's meet at 6 a.m. All right? We'll start at 6 a.m. We'll try to wrap up by 9:30. Let's see how it goes. So regular morning class. Is that clear? So let's meet tomorrow. But now, can you please let me know if you have questions? Gaurav is asking, sir, are civil servants also involved in this? They might be involved. Because when such a large amount of money is being moved, there are many government agencies and institutions that are supposed to keep a check. Like RBI will know when money is being moved out. What if there are corrupt RBI officials? Right? What if in finance ministry, in ED, there are fraudulent, corrupt officials working with these networks and taking a commission? So it requires the assistance of many, many people in the system, from a bank manager to criminal groups to corrupt officials, right? So everybody would be involved. A lot of people, lot of even private companies, as I told you, investment banking firms, private consulting firms, they could all be involved. Kanchana is asking, please explain the Hawala part. Hawala transaction is an informal transaction. It's an informal way of moving money from one country to another. All right. How does it work? Now, let's say I want to give 10 crore rupees to my brother who's in the US. All right. Now, I am trying to move this informally through a Hawala route. I will approach a Hawala agent in India. All right. I'll tell him, see, this is my brother in the US. I want him to transfer 10 crore rupees. Obviously, the equivalent of that in US dollars. All right. Now, I'll give the money to the Hawala agent. I'll give it to him. Now, he will give me a password. He'll give me a code word, which I will pass it on to my brother in the US. And the Hawala agent who got the money from me, he will contact his counterpart in the US. Hawala network is a global informal network. He'll contact his counterpart in the US. He'll tell him, this is the guy who should get the money. Go and give him 10 crore worth of US dollars. All right. And he will give him the password as well. Now, those two, the Hawala agent in US and my brother in US, they will meet. They will exchange the passwords, right? Just to verify that this is the right person. And once that is verified, he will pay the money in dollars to my brother and the transaction is done. The actual money I gave in rupees never left India. It's with the Hawala agent. What will he do? He will use it to give it to some criminal group or a terrorist group. He'll be involved with such activities. Got it? That's how it is fueling criminal and terrorist activities. But my brother in the US got the equivalent money. And there is no evidence, not a single trail, not a single piece of document. Everything happened through word of mouth. I met the Hawala agent personally, telling him this has to be done. Informed my brother. He informed the Hawala agent. It's all through word of mouth, informal. It works on trust. Is that clear? Of course, it was entirely on trust. So that is a Hawala transaction. GI is asking, sir, digital signature is a unique electronic code. Digital signature actually comes with a certificate. There's something called a security certificate. When you click on the digital signature, you can see the security certificate, which is certified by the authorities. So that gives legal validity to the document. Veera is asking, sir, can the funding of a political party taken under electoral bonds come under money laundering? No, that won't be under money laundering. See, electoral bond is a legal system that has been created for political funding, right? Any individual, any company can contribute. They can purchase electoral bond and the political parties can encash them. So there might be black money involved, but that is not exactly money laundering. It's just few individuals, organizations contributing money for political parties. What is NTRO? NTRO is an intelligence agency which specializes in technical intelligence. It can intercept all communications, mobile communication, satellite communication, internet-based communication. All right. So guys, these are the questions. Let's stop here for today. Tomorrow we'll first finish FATF and money laundering, then look at border management, border security, and under the last chapter, that is security forces, I'll cover some conceptual topics and rest of the factual topics we can read later through the PPTs. So please prepare any doubts, any questions you have. I'll give you some time tomorrow as well to ask your questions. So that is it for today. I hope you guys have liked the session, enjoyed it. I hope it was interesting and you learned and understood everything. Please let me know any issues, any concerns, and let's meet tomorrow, 6 a.m. We'll catch up again.